Welcome to India Business Insights. Today, we will discuss women's participation in the labor force, focusing on Claudia Goldin's significant contribution, which made her this year's Nobel Prize winner. Before we proceed further, like, share and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the notification bell to stay updated. Recently, Claudia Goldin won the Nobel Prize in Economics for having advanced our understanding of women's labor market outcomes, where she uncovered key drivers of gender differences. Women are vastly underrepresented in the global labor market, and there exists a huge wage disparity between men and women, even for the same work. As per Forbes, on average, women earn 77 cents for every dollar earned by men. Globally, around half of all women are in paid employment, while the equivalent figure for men is 80%. This varies dramatically from country to country. In 2020, the European Union had the highest gender pay gap in Latvia at 22.3% and lowest in Luxembourg at 0.7%. Korea has the largest gender pay gap at 31.5%, and Belgium has one of the smallest gaps at 3.4%. India is amongst the most important countries when it comes to the global economic growth and structural transformation story. Today, let's ponder over the question of why are there gender differences in earnings and employment rates over time, and do they have any impact on GDP growth rates and the general economic well-being? The U-shaped curve. Intuitively, it is easy to believe that women's participation in the labor force would grow with steady economic growth. However, the overall picture is smudged due to women's work being underreported in historical sources. The participation of women in the labor market did not show an upward trend, but instead formed a U-shaped curve. Well, you see, as society progressed from agrarian to industrial, the participation of married women decreased, and with the growth in the service sector, it started to increase. Goldin explained this pattern as the result of structural change and evolving social norms regarding women's responsibilities for home and family. Before the phase of industrialization in the 19th century, women were more likely to participate in the labor force because industrialization made it harder for many married women to work from home and combine work and family. While around 20% of all women worked for pay, only 5% of married women did so. With technological progress, increased level of women's education and growth in the service sector, the demand for female labor increased with social stigma, legislation, and other institutional barriers acting as limiting factors. Expectations and opportunities. In the early 19th century, most women were expected to exit the labor market upon marriage, and hence decisions about higher education may be based on expectations that later do not come to fruition. But with rapid development, changed societal norms meant that often women returned to the labor market. However, there is a lack of convergence of expectations and outcomes. You see, the educational choices were made at a time when women were not expected to have a career and underestimated how much they would work. It was after the 1970s that women who were young invested more in education. In recent decades, women have become increasingly likely to study, and in high-income countries, women generally have a higher level of education than men. One of the most recent innovations which fundamentally changed their opportunity for both planning and having a career is a tiny pill. The introduction of the contraceptive pill resulted in women delaying marriage and childbirth, implying better planning of the future and thus also being clearer about what they expected, giving them entirely new incentives to invest in their education and careers. Goldin's studies have taught us that change takes time because choices that affect entire careers are based on expectations that may later prove to be false. Let's talk about pay discrimination. We often see an earning gap between women and men. The International Labour Organization's average gap for India is a far wider 34%. Women employees in India earn less than their male counterparts on every step up in their careers, as reflected by a widening of the gender pay gap as women rise in the organization hierarchy. Many sectors expect employees to be constantly available for the employer's demand, and the motherhood effect can partly explain why career progression and earnings increase more difficulty for women. The horizon, the identity, and decision making. How do these apply to India? The study busted the myth that women's participation in the labor force has increased as economies grew. As per the World Economic Forum, recent 17th edition of the Global Gender Gap Report, it was cited that at the current rate, it will take at least 131 years to close the economic participation and opportunity gender gap. The analysis includes a constant sample of 102 countries, enabling a time series analysis of global gender parity trends. Further, on economic disparity, the report finds that women's representation in the global workforce is around 41.9%, but they only account for 32.2% of senior leadership positions. The research done by Goldin can be instructive for countries around the world, especially India. But before that, let's have a look at some data. As per the latest available annual PLFS reports, the estimated labor force participation rate, LFPR, has gone up to 39.2% in FY22 for women in age group 15 to 64 years, and for women in age group 25 to 64 years, it has gone up to 45.6%. This participation rate is expected to improve further with the coming laws designed to encourage women's participation and providing them a more congenial work environment. The Code of Social Security 2020 has increased the paid maternity leave from 12 weeks to 26 weeks, along with adequate safety measures permitting women workers in night shifts. This code has been passed by the central government and has yet to be implemented due to various reasons. We have done earlier videos on the new labor codes and another more recent video on the challenges towards the implementation of these labor codes. You will find links to these videos in the description box. The Code of Wages 2019 has provisions that there shall be no discrimination in an establishment on grounds of gender in matters relating to wages by the same employer in respect of the same work or work of a similar nature done by any employee. However, despite such initiatives, along with the falling fertility rate and increased enrollment in schools, the female labor force participation rate is one of the lowest in the world at 19.23% as per the WEL's Global Gender Gap Report 2022. Goldin's research explains this. Women pay a higher cost for temporal flexibility. Family needs to translate into numerous women opting out of paying jobs, as most of the unpaid domestic work at home is the responsibility of Indian societies. The Wage Gender Inequality Index is at the highest point along with patriarchal rigidity. As highlighted above, the unfair distribution of caregiving responsibilities at home is one of the main causes behind wage inequality, and this is true especially in India, where men shoulder only 10% of unpaid care work. In our country, societal norms have struggled to evolve at a parallel pace with technology, and the motherhood effect can be seen. The obligations placed on Indian women are so demanding that even young women are missing in India's workforce due to parental paranoia and the very real lack of physical security in and outside the workspace. As per the World Economic Forum's Global Gap Index, India ranks 127th amongst 146 countries. However, we have the highest percentage of female pilots globally, with about 12.4% of all pilots women compared with 5.5% in the US. Further, India started decades ago recruiting women in STEM positions, including pilots. Over time, this consistent effort all over the country has led to a large number of women choosing a profession some didn't even know it existed. This explains the importance of the two factors mentioned above. Well, the best way for India to celebrate Ms. Goldin's contribution would be for policy to ponder the questions raised by her research and use them to make analysis and policy making gender sensitive and inclusive. Curve, a multifaceted approach involving subsidized childcare support, eliminating gender discrimination at work, workplace flexibility, and reshaping of gender roles are required to improve equality in labor market conditions. We hope her golden works will inspire an effort to change this. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the notification bell so that you stay updated.